African American female student in her classroom. Well, she didn't feel it was her place to just pick that particular student out. So she emailed the whole class and said, "Do you know anyone that knows how to do cornrows? And would they mind speaking to our class?" Lo and behold, that student felt comfortable enough to lead that class discussion. And this was a student who normally would sit in the back of the room and not be engaged. And so the teacher told me that story because she was really happy about it. But also, she tried something new. She did a math lesson about cornrows. And there's actually a book. It's called Math is a Verb. And it has a full lesson on just cornrows. And
All right, y'all. Good morning. Hopefully you were sitting down when you heard that shit. But basically, this is a video from 6 years ago, almost. This is a TEDx talk from December of 2016, and Shelly Jones here is explaining how some teacher had like a single black student in her class, and didn't feel comfortable asking the black student directly about whether she had knowledge of how to do cornrows. And her brilliant plan was to email the entire class with apparently with one black person in it and ask the whole class, "Hey, does anyone know how to do cornrows?" Um, you know, Apparently she tried a couple other versions of that first. She had also emailed the class and asked if anybody knew how to make collard greens or if anybody knew how to make an Incredible Hulk. And she also had emailed the class asking if anybody's grandmother had any guesses as to the ideal spice mix for fried chicken. But the cornrow one hit, and so she was able to incorporate that into into the mathematics lesson. Um, but no, recently, I'm sure some of you have seen that the idea of racist math, ethnically responsive or culturally responsive math. You can see here culturally relevant pedagogy in mathematics is a critical need. Critically relevant, CR, it's all a bunch of word salad, but it should seem very familiar as this push of critical race theory and culturally responsive learning, which is a term you'll hear come to the forefront. And so when you hear pedagogy, I'm going to get off this page here. And when you hear pedagogy, here's where we'll make today's kind of philosophical connection. The dude that this terminology is coming from is Paulo Freire, which I may be pronouncing wrong. But this guy is, what's going on here? This guy's a Brazilian educator and philosopher who was a leading advocate of critical pedagogy. And his influential work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is generally considered one of the foundational texts of the critical pedagogy movement. And he's the third most cited. It is the third most cited book in the social sciences as of that was as of 2016. But basically, this dude is a postmodern thinker. He's a Marxist, and basically his contribution to the philosophical movement of neo-Marxism was to basically design the protocol for turning children in public schools into activists. And I'm sure in the past few months and couple years, many of you have seen his work coming to the forefront as an influential figure. So you've seen probably the conversation around math and race and all these things. We're going to let DeSantis, who, I think he stepped into the fray regarding the abortion issue in a way that wasn't totally necessary for him in terms of his kind of prospects as a national candidate. But obviously, it does follow from the worldview that he holds. And so with these abortion bills, I'm not going to get into them too much. I do think that like having an abortion bill without an exception for rape is just incredibly. It's. I think it's morally lacking to force someone to carry the baby of a rapist that they didn't want. It's not as if they, there's an argument about responsibility if you're engaging in sex, because there's always the possibility of pregnancy. And, that argument sounds great unless you're ignoring rape. But, anyways, going to get back into this math thing. He is basically, he's responding to. I'm going to reload this because for some reason the video's going trippy. He's responding to criticism from the media about Florida's bill. I'm sorry, it's not a bill. They removed a certain number of math books that had critical race ideology baked into the text. Catching a lot of flack in the media. Let's see how
And
he
we want all our
combats
students
it.
getting the right answers. And
So, I mean, and just to set it up a little bit, there is nobody in American politics right now who can completely slay a media narrative as concisely and effectively as Ron DeSantis. It's an amazing talent. He, when he, the reason that the abortion thing is kind of a departure from his normal style, in my opinion, is that most of his analysis seems to be pretty nonpartisan most of the time. It's got a lot of appeal for centrists and independents and disaffected liberals like myself, who are tired of the push of identity politics and the indulging of the media narrative from politicians. So let's listen to him just totally destroy all this criticism.
math is about getting the right answer. And we want kids to learn to think so they get the right answer. It's not about how you feel about the problem or to introduce some of these other things. There's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And we want all our students getting the right answers. And so most of the books that did not meet Florida standards for whatever reason happen to be in the early grades. As you get into the older grades, most of those books did meet the standards, but we're going to continue to focus the education on the actual strong academic performance of the students. We don't want things like math to have some of these other concepts introduced. It's not been proven to be effective, and quite frankly, it takes our eye off the ball.
Boom, straight to the point. Takes our eye off the ball. It hasn't been proven to be effective. So like with the it hasn't been proven to be effective thing, that's just like putting the ball back in the other person's court. You're not even really saying that what they're proposing isn't necessarily true. It's just like prove it, And the reality is that the activists and ideologues who want to, talk about police shootings and word problems with children, they are intentionally trying to keep your eye off the ball. And so you can see this is from December of 2021. Is math education racist? Debate rages over changes to how U.S. teaches the subject. So we're not going to really dive into this article itself. It's about one black teacher in Florida who incorporates some sort of racial context to her lessons. But, when people deny what they're doing right now, the main rhetorical push, not from December of 2021, but from the current day, is they're denying, in response to Florida's move to nix these particular math textbooks, they're denying that there's any sort of racial dialogue or ideology baked into the math. However, a few months ago, there's accusations that math is racist, and there's these assertions being made. Let's just kind of see where this winds up. Here you go. Another heated issue. This is exactly what. This is so funny because the regime denies the shit that they were just talking about a few months ago. Another heated issue is the extent to which math education should include real-world problems involving racial and social inequalities. Fairly or not, that debate has landed in the murky soup of critical race theory discussions and so digressions. And so there's a very simple reason why this debate over whether word problems in math books should involve racial and social inequality. And the reason that plays into the critical race theory conversation is because the entire goal of critical race theory is to portray any racial disparity as a product of a systemically racist society. So what they're literally doing is teaching kids to calculate racial inequalities, and the ideology that they're pushing says that that's automatically racism, systemic, and sometimes interpersonal. And so, when you hear someone trying to play hide the ball, keep your eye on the ball, as DeSantis said. And when you see someone trying to play hide the ball, keep in mind that this is actually what I was referring to a moment ago when I talked about word problems involving like police shootings and crime statistics and stuff like that. That stuff's literally happening, and annoyingly, I could not find an example of that today when I was looking at this video, but we do have some other examples. So here from Chris Rufo is ethnomathematics. It's in the curriculum in Seattle. So you can see, I mean, we're just going to look at the themes that they're talking about this is the K through 12 Math Ethnic Studies Framework. This is from 2019. Origins, Identity, and Agency. Power and Oppression. History of Resistance and Liberation. Reflection and Action. So, I mean, this is literally teaching kids how to be activists, okay? And this is in math, right? It's a math class, and they're trying to teach the history of resistance and liberation. So they're going to make sure that your kid is able to, this shit is so ridiculous. They want children to focus on their origins, identity, and agency. They want to frame society within the bounds of power and oppression. They want to teach the history of resistance and liberation. And they want to talk about reflection and action. Okay? So that's the pathway to creating a childhood activist. And again, this is the Seattle Public Schools Math Ethnic Studies Framework. It's directly from their website. You can see the link over here. So again, when you see someone on the news or a politician or some parent that you know denying the fact that this race-related material is being injected into math, they're lying to you. They are a liar, and they're not to be trusted, especially with your children. I think wasn't intending to have that one pulled up. So here's one. I couldn't find the police one earlier, but here's an example about culturally responsive math. So this one's about, using unit rates to convert and measurement, right? And so this is going to fit. I just got rid of that page already, but this is going to, this would fit into like the history of resistance and liberation, right? So a band marches in the African American Day Parade in New York City. The band marches 800 meters every 15 minutes. At this rate, how many kilometers does the band march in 1 hour? All right. So, I think 3.2 is going to be the answer to that question, but I'm not even trying to find that. And if I'm wrong, then I look like a fucking idiot right now. But let's see, 15 minutes, four 50-minute periods in an hour, 800, 3,200. Yeah, 3.2 kilometers. Anyways, that may or may not be impressive. I don't know. Sorry about that tangent. But yeah, so, this would be the history of liberation. I mean, obviously, this question only needs a band marches 800 meters every 15 minutes. At this rate, how many kilometers does the band march in an hour? That's all you need here in terms of teaching the skill of mathematics to the student. However, if you want to inject some sort of racial framing on top of that, then you add this part about the African American Day Parade. Here's another one. This one's really a blunt object here. Frederick has 6 baskets filled with cotton. If each basket held 5 pounds, how many pounds did he have altogether? So we're literally at this point doing calculations of slaves and the weight of cotton that they have picked. Each tree has 56 oranges. If 8 slaves pick them equally, then how much would each slave pick? Now, I may be crazy, but back in the day, I'm pretty sure we had like a table, and we would learn the basic, process of division to figure this out, and there wouldn't be any context of slaves. even the oranges thing is something that when you're first learning the concept, that's like some shit that'll show up on a test or something or some homework. But when you're learning the concept in the class, um, you know, it's just the numbers. And we'll wrap it up with this one in terms of the subject. If Frederick got 2 beatings per day, how many beatings did he get in 1 week, 2 weeks? So, you can see very straightforward how this is bullshit to inject this stuff into math classes, and you can see that the media is lying to you when they talk about Florida being, ridiculous as far as the math thing is concerned. And here's where we're going to finish up as far as the math subject is concerned. This is from June of 2020. This is the height of the summer of love. What does anti-racism in mathematics look like? This question is on the front of my mind and is followed by how is anti-racism in mathematics practiced? So this lady's writing an article about race in math. And I mean, in the first paragraph, we're talking about George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, okay? And then literally this entire article is mostly just her continually referencing How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And he talks about racial inequality, what I said earlier regarding critical race theory, teaching that any racial disparity is a manifestation of racism in a system. This article basically is about that. So we're not going to give it too much attention because it's fucking bullshit. Anyways, we're going to move on to the regime's reaction to their mask mandate being struck down.